There are many rules of logarithms, and out of those, there are 3 which are frequently used. Here's the first one. It tells us about the log of xy to the base b. You see that there's a product inside. So the first rule states that this equals log of x to the base b plus log of y to the base b. Yes, this is the first rule and it's called the logarithmic addition identity. When 2 logs with the same base are added, we write the argument as the product of the 2 arguments. The most important thing we should notice here is the base. The base has to be the same. Only then will this rule hold true. The next rule talks about log of x over y to the base b. You can probably guess what this will be equal to. Yes, it will be equal to log of x to the base b minus log of y to the base b. That's the second rule, and again, the bases are the same. This is referred to as the logarithmic subtraction identity. The third rule is quite interesting. It tells us about the log of a raised to n to the base b. Here the base is b and the argument is a raised to n. It equals n times log of a to the base b. The power of the argument is written here. So these are the 3 most important rules in logarithms. But there are a few common mistakes that students make while remembering these rules. Log x multiplied by log y is not equal to log of x plus y. Log of x times y is equal to log of x plus log of y. And similarly, log of x divided by log of y is not equal to log of x minus y. Remember that the product or the division is written as the argument, not here. Now where do these rules help us? Let's look at an example. We have been asked to find the log of 24 to the base 2. Now most calculators provide the answers for log to the base 10 and the natural log. So assume that we need to find this value without the calculator. But we are given some additional information along with it. The log of 6 to the base 2 is equal to 2.58496. How do we approach this problem? We are given the value of log 6 to the base 2 and we need to find the value of log 24 to the base 2. Give it a try. The trick lies in writing 24 as a product of 2 numbers. This can be written as log of 4 times 6 to the base 2. The argument 24 is written as 4 times 6. Now why did we write it as 4 times 6 and not 2 times 12? You'll know soon. Let's try applying the first rule here. We can write it as log of 4 to the base 2 plus log of 6 to the base 2. Log of xy is log of x plus log of y. It's the same concept we applied here. We have been given the value of this term, but what about this one? Do we need the calculator for this? This just asks us 2 raised to what will give us 4? And the answer is 2. There was another way in which we could have solved for the first term. It can be written as log of 2 squared to the base 2. Applying the third rule, we can write this as 2 times log of 2 to the base 2. And we know that log of b to the base b equals 1. And 2 times 1 is 2. No matter what rule or property you apply, you will get the same answer. Anyway, coming back to our problem. This is given to us as 2.58496. Adding these terms gives us 4.58496. Let's verify our answer using an online calculator. The base is 2 and the argument is 24. If we calculate this, we get 4.58496. Our answer is correct. Before we move on to the other examples, we will prove these 3 rules in the next few videos. We have seen examples in which the base of the logarithm is 10 or sometimes it's e. Log to the base e is also written as ln or the natural logarithm. Why is it called the natural logarithm? We will see that in another video, but for now, you should know that these 2 are the most commonly used bases in logarithms. Base 10 and base e. And most of the scientific or the financial calculators have one or both of these 2 logarithms. So what would we do if we are asked to find the value of log 8 to the base 3 using a calculator? We can't find this value, right? That's where the change of base formula comes into the picture. The change of base formula states that log of a to the base b can be written as log of a to the base x over log of b to the base x. Log of a to any base x over log of b to that same base x. The bases in the numerator and the denominator should be the same. Of course, the normal conditions about the base and the argument will still exist. The base, or in this case x, will be greater than 0 and x will not be equal to 1. And the arguments a and b will be greater than 0. This is the change of base formula. Quite easy to remember actually. The argument becomes the numerator, the base becomes the denominator, and the bases here will be the same and can be anything. Coming back to our question, how do we find the value of log of 8 to the base 3? Because the calculator can't really help us with this, we can write it as log of 8 to the base e over log of 3 to the base e. The argument was written in the numerator, the base in the denominator, and the common base was chosen as e. The calculator can give us these two values. Here's a scientific calculator. We can see that we are given the natural log and the log to the base 10 buttons. We are interested in the natural log here. The numerator is the natural log of 8. The natural log of 8 approximately gives us 2.0794. So we write 2.0794 in the numerator. In the denominator, we have the natural log of 3. That'll approximately give us 1.0986. We write this in the denominator. And this value can be easily calculated using the calculator. 2.0794 over 1.0986 will give us 1.8928 approximately. That's one of the ways in which change of base helps us. Some calculators also give us the value of log to the base 10. So this can also be written as log of 8 to the base 10 over log of 3 to the base 10. Let's see what this gives us. Log to the base 10 can also be written as log. Log implies log to the base 10. Log of 8 gives us this, approximately 0.9031. Now we move on to the denominator. Log of 3 will give us this, 0.4771. What do you think this value should be equal to? 0.9031 divided by 0.4771 gives us this, 1.8928 approximately. It's the same value and it has to be the same value. The log of 8 to the base 3 has just one value. And it's this, doesn't matter how we calculate it. That was the change of base formula. And with this formula, there's one other minor property we can derive. We know this formula. Now, if we divide the numerator and the denominator by log of a to the base x, we get this. Look at the denominator now. What will this be equal to? Using the change of base formula again, it will equal log of b to the base a. It will equal this. We get log of a to the base b equal to 1 over log b to the base a. And multiplying both sides with log of b to the base a will result in this. Log of a to the base b multiplied by log of b to the base a will equal 1. The log of a to the base b is equal to x. How do we write this in the exponential form? We can write it as b raised to x is equal to a. Both the equations tell us the same thing. Now before we move forward, there are a few fundamental properties we need to know. Let's discuss the first one. What will log of 1 to the base b be equal to? How do we find this answer? I encourage you to pause the video and find the answer to this. Say it equals x. In the exponential form, it can be written as b raised to x is equal to 1. Remember, the exponential form is what most of us are comfortable with. This can help us find the value of x. For the answer to be 1, the power here has to be 0. Do you remember that property of exponents? Any non-zero number raised to 0 is equal to 1. Hence, x here is 0. The log of 1 to any base will always equal 0. Log of 1 to the base 12 is equal to 0. Log of 1 to the base 250 is also equal to 0. That was the first fundamental property we looked at. Log of 1 to any base will always equal 0. Now let's move on to the second property. What will be the value of log of b to the base b? Give it a shot. Assume that it equals x. So in the exponential form, it can be written as b raised to x is equal to b. What will be the value of x here? Come on, it's easy. B to the power 1 will equal b. X will be equal to 1. The log of b to the base b will equal 1. If the argument and the base are the same, then the logarithm will be 1. For instance, the log of 4 to the base 4 will be equal to 1. That was the second property. The third one is pretty cool. It talks about the log of b raised to n to the base b. Assuming this equals x, try writing this in the exponential form. It is written as b raised to x is equal to b raised to n. It's pretty clear. X has to be equal to n. So the log of b raised to n to the base b will equal n. An example would be log of 11 cubed to the base 11 will equal 3. So these are the three fundamental properties of logarithms, and we don't really need to remember these as they can be easily derived. Along with the properties, there are a few conditions we need to know about. Let's see them on the right side of the board. The basic form of logarithm is written like this, where a is the argument and b is the base. Now for this to be valid, there are a few conditions about a and b that we need to know. Okay, first, the argument has to be greater than 0. This value here has to be greater than 0. So log of 0 to the base b is undefined, and the log of a negative number to the base b is also incorrect. But don't get confused here. The answer of the log can be 0 or negative. For example, as we saw here, the log of 1 to the base b will be 0. This is correct. And what will be log of 1/2 to the base 2? It will equal -1 as 2 raised to -1 is equal to 1/2 or 0.5. This is also correct. The answer can be 0 or negative, but the argument has to be greater than 0. What are the conditions for b? The base b has to be greater than 0 and it cannot be equal to 1. Yes, the base b cannot be equal to 1. So the log of a to the negative number base is incorrect. Why is 1 not allowed as the base? I want you to tax your brain a bit and come up with an answer. Why can't the base be equal to 1? Let's say the base was 1 and we have a logarithmic expression like log of a to the base 1 is equal to x. In the exponential form, it can be written as 1 raised to x is equal to a. What can be the value of x that gives us a? If a is 2, what will x be? If a is 5, what will x be equal to? We can't really come up with an answer because 1 raised to any number will result in a 1. Hence, this will be undefined. So these were the three simple primary properties of logs, and these were the conditions. With this, we can move ahead and solve interesting examples. The log of 100 to the base 10 is equal to x. What is the value of x? To find the answer, it's a good idea to write this in the exponential form. It can be written as 10 raised to x is equal to 100. Remember, the answer to the log is the power to which the base needs to be raised. Here, as the base is 10, we are asking 10 to what power will give us 100? We know that 10 to the power 2 gives us 100. The value of x is 2. What if log of 1000 to the base 10 is given to us as x? What will be the value of x? This can be written as 10 raised to x is equal to 1000. And as 10 cubed is 1000, the value of x will be 3. Notice that if we take the logarithm to the base 10 of powers of 10, we get numbers like 2, 3, 4 and so on. Now how does this help us in real life? Look at these numbers. They range from being tiny to huge. And we do come across such numbers in real life. 1, 10 and 1000 are commonly used. This can be a person's salary. This is the approximate distance from the earth to the sun. And this is the approximate number of cells in the human body. Now assume you have been asked to plot the following values on a number line. How would you do it? We cannot mark natural numbers like this because these large numbers won't really fit into our little notebooks. If we mark 0 and 10 raised to 14 here, these tiny numbers like 1, 10 and 1000 would lie super close to 0. So what's the solution? How about we take the logarithm of the numbers to the base 10? What will be the log of 1 to the base 10? 10 raised to 0 is equal to 1. Hence we have a 0 here. Log 10 to the base 10 will equal 1 as 10 to the power 1 will give us 10. Log of 1000 to the base 10 will equal 3 as 10 cubed is 1000. Similarly, we get 5, 8 and 14 here. Now I want you to tell me, can these numbers be easily plotted on a number line? Yes, a scale from 0 to 14 is enough. Large numbers can be easily plotted using logarithms. Also notice that there is a very large variation between numbers. Logs also help us in narrowing down these variations. So in layman terms, we can say that if the events vary drastically, we can use logarithms. And a very common example of that is the Richter scale, which is used to measure earthquakes. It uses a logarithmic scale. To understand this, let's talk about the earthquakes that happened in 3 different countries. In India, there was an earthquake that registered a 6.0 on the Richter scale. In the US, there was an earthquake that registered 7.0, and Japan had an earthquake that registered a 9.0 on the Richter scale. Now what does this really tell us? The Richter scale is a base 10 logarithmic scale, which means they are in the form log m to the base 10. Don't worry about what this m is. We don't really want to get into details. Just that log to the base 10 of something gives us these numbers which tell us how strong the earthquake is. So if log of m to the base 10 is 6, what will be the value of m? It will be 10 raised to 6. If log a to the base b is x, then in the exponential form, b raised to x will equal a. Hence 10 raised to 6 will equal m. And in these two cases, m will be 10 raised to 7 and 10 raised to 9. This will help us massively in understanding the Richter scale. The values of m tells us how strong the earthquakes are, while the Richter scale is used just to represent these huge numbers using a manageable scale. So an earthquake measuring 7.0 on the Richter scale is actually 10 times stronger than the one that measured 6.0. So while the difference between 6 and 7 might seem small, it's not really like that. And how strong was the Japan earthquake as compared to the one in India? It was 1,000 times stronger than the one in India. And it was 100 times stronger than the one that occurred in the US. That's how logarithmics are used to measure earthquakes. Logarithms and exponents are pretty closely related. What is 3 to the power 4? It is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That will equal 81. So the power of the base tells us how many times the base is multiplied with itself. We say that 3 raised to 4 equals 81. We have studied this in exponents. What are logarithms then? Now this exact same thing can be written using logarithms. This can be written as logarithm of 81 to the base 3 is equal to 4. Yes, logarithm can also be written as log. But look at this expression carefully. The power or the exponent is the answer and the base of the log is the base number. So in the log expression, we are asking 3 raised to what will give us 81? 3 raised to 4. The power to which the base of the log needs to be raised to get the argument will be the answer. The power to which 3 needs to be raised to get 81 will be the answer. It's 4. Wasn't that simple? Let's look at an interesting problem. Log of 125 to the base 5 is given to us as x. What is the value of x? To get the answer, we should try writing this in the exponential form. This asks us 5 raised to what power gives us 125? 5 to the power x gives us 125. This makes it easier to find the value of x. We know that 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So 5 to the power 3 will equal 125. It gives us the value of x as 3. Let me give you 2 more examples. I want you to pause the video and find the values x and y. So how did you write the first equation in exponential form? 2 raised to what gives us 32? 2 raised to the power x gives us 32. And we know that 2 raised to 5 equals 32. The value of x is 5. The second one is a bit interesting. The equation can be written as 4 raised to y is equal to 1. 4 to what power will result in 1? Do you remember a property of exponents? Any non-zero number raised to 0 will result in 1. Hence 4 raised to 0 will equal 1. The value of y is 0. What is e? The 2 most common logarithms used are log to the base 10 and log to the base e. Why are they the most commonly used logarithms? How do we really understand them? Log to the base 10 is kind of intuitive. It's easier to talk in multiples of 10. 10, 100, 1000 and so on. Log to the base 10 gives us an easier scale to work with. Log 10 to the base 10 is 1. Log 100 to the base 10 is 2. 1000 to the base 10 is 3. And we can see that the multiples of 10 can be managed with a scale of natural numbers. But log to the base e is what I'm deeply interested in. It's called the natural log. And it's also written as ln. Yes, log to the base e is also written as ln. So log 20 to the base e can be written as ln of 20, the natural log of 20. What is this e? Some call it a magical number. Some call it an irrational constant. Some call it a Euler's number. But the harsh truth is this: very few people actually understand what E is. To get to E, we first need to understand growth. Let's say a particular thing doubles every time period. On this timeline, this is today, and every unit is one time period. Assume you have $1 with you. At the end of the first time period, this dollar doubles and you have $2. At the end of the second period, $2 double to become $4. And at the end of the third period, we have $8. How do we look at this growth? First, we see that the numbers at the end of the time periods are powers of 2. It's in the form 2 to the power x, where x is a non-negative integer. 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, 2 raised to 3, and so on. This was one way in which we looked at double growth. Another way to look at it is that there is 100% growth every time period. 1 plus 100% of 1 gives us 2. $1 was increased by 100% to get 2. In the second time period, $2 grew to $4. 2 plus 100% of 2 gives us 4, and so on. So doubling the value is the same as a 100% increase. So 2 raised to x can also be written as 1 plus 100% raised to x. It's like you're getting a 100% return on your investment. But hold on, we are making an assumption here. We are assuming that growth happens in a discontinuous fashion. We are seeing growths in steps here. What about the time in between two time periods? We are seeing no growth in between. No growth and it suddenly doubles. Again no growth and suddenly doubles. But hey, that's not how nature functions. Everything or every kind of growth happens gradually. If your height today is 4 feet, you suddenly won't be 5 feet a year later. Your height gradually grows. When we started, we used to get around 30 views a day. And after a year, we started getting around 4,000 views a day. It doesn't mean our view count just jumped one fine day. It gradually increased. So growth in nature is never really discrete or discontinuous. Let's see how it really works. We take the example of $1 growing over 1 year at a 100% growth rate. First, we look at the annual growth. Based on what we saw, at time 0, we would have $1. And at the end of the year, we will have $2. This doesn't seem right because all the interest cannot appear on the last day. To make it slightly better, let's divide the year into two equal parts, 6 months and 6 months. Splitting that 100%, the growth would be 50% in the first year and 50% in the second. It would look like this. Our initial dollar earned 50% interest in the first half to give 50 cents more. Now what happens in the second half? $1.50 remains as is. The growth is 50%. So 50% of $1 will be 50 cents. And this time the 50 cents also earned a 50% interest. That will be 25 cents. This 1.5 is the sum of our original dollar and the 50 cents we made here. So at the end of the first year, we have our original dollar, then we have the dollar that made our original dollar made, and we also have the 25 cents that these 50 cents made. A total of $2.25. This is better than doubling. If we want to understand this using a formula, it would be 1 plus 100% over 2, the whole squared. We had half the growth rate over 2 time periods. This is also referred to as semi-annual growth. Let's push ourselves further. What if we had 4 equal time periods in a year? We have divided 1 year into 4 quarters. This is how it would look. Looks messy, but it's actually very simple if you've understood the concept. It's 25% growth every quarter. The formula would change to 1 plus 100% over 4, the whole raised to 4. We would approximately get $2.441 at the end of the first year. I suggest you pause the video and understand the quarterly growth diagram really well. The 100% is nothing but 1. If 2 time periods, then we have 2 here. If 4 time periods, then 4 here. So the formula for n time periods would be 1 plus 1 over n, the whole raised to n. Clearly, more the number of time periods, higher will be the returns. This will give us the dollar value at the end. I probably know what your greedy brain is thinking. Is it possible to get unlimited money? Let's make a table now. Number of time periods and the dollar value in the end. If it's just 1 time period, the dollar value is 2. If 2 time periods, then $2.25. If 4 time periods, then $2.44. If I divide the year into 12 equal time periods, my return will be higher than this. If I divide it into 365 equal time periods, it will be even higher. This tells us that $1 at the start of the year will become these many dollars at the end of 1 year if the number of time periods is 365. So if we increase this number significantly, that is if we increase the number of time periods significantly, will this number also increase significantly? Okay, here are a few more calculations. The number of time periods here is 1 million. Notice that the returns improve, yes, but they converge around a value which approximately equals 2.718. And that is your beloved E. We can't get infinite money after all. What would be a layman-friendly explanation for E then? It is the maximum possible result after continuously compounding a 100% growth over one time period. Yes, that's E. Don't forget, we had assumed a 100% growth here. And that's what E is. It's the maximum we get after a 100% continuous compounding growth over one time period. Notice what compounding does. The first result is 100% without compounding. $1 would become $2. But after continuous compounding, $1 will become $2.718 approximately. That would be a growth rate of 171.8%. That's like the maximum growth we can have. So E is approximately 2.718. It's an irrational number, which means the digits after the decimal point do not repeat and go on forever. Just one last question. What if the growth rate and the time period change? Will E still help us? Absolutely, there's no problem at all. In general, the growth after continuous compounding is given to us as e to the power r times t, where r is the rate and t is the number of time periods. So if we have a 200% growth for 5 years, then it would be defined as e to the power 2 times 5. We squared e to include 200% growth and we raised it to 5 as there are 5 time periods. It'll give us e to the power 10. E is nothing but the maximum possible result after continuously compounding a 100% growth over one time period. Let's try converting equations in the exponential form to equations in the logarithmic form and vice versa. What is 7 to the power 3 equal to?
It's 343.
And what about 2 to the power 6? It will equal 64. These two equations are in the exponential form. Now I want you to try writing them in the logarithmic form. I'm sure that was easy. Remember, the answer of the logarithm is the power.
So we can write this one as log of 343 to the base 7 equals 3. If you just look at the left hand side, it asks 7 raised to what will give us 343? And the answer is 3.
And similarly, this can be written as log of 64 to the base 2 is equal to 6. So converting from exponential form to the logarithmic form was easy. How about I give you a couple of equations in the logarithmic form? Say this example and this one. Try writing these two equations in the exponential form. Okay, so 6 raised to what will give us 216? That's right, 6 raised to 3 will give us 216. And this one's interesting as we have a negative answer. 2 raised to negative 1 will equal 0.5 or 1/2. So by now, you should be pretty confident about both forms, exponential as well as logarithmic. In the previous tutorial, we had plotted the graph of y is equal to 3 to the power x. It's an exponential function and its graph looks a bit like this. When x is negative, the y values are tiny. And when x takes positive values, the y values start increasing exponentially. So if this is how an exponential function looks, how will the logarithmic function look then? The function we have is y is equal to log x to the base 3. This is a logarithmic function. Now one way to plot the graph is by finding out the different values of y for different values of the input x. Should we go ahead then? Note that finding log to the base 3 of a number is a bit tedious, even with a calculator. Can you think of an innovative way to plot the graph of this function? As we are more comfortable with the exponential form, how about we try writing this function as an exponential one? In the exponential form, we can write it as 3 to the power y is equal to x. Now it's easier to plot the coordinates of this function. We can just assume values for y and get corresponding values of x. And remember, as they are the same functions essentially, the graphs of both the functions will also be the same. So even if we plot the graph of this function, it'll be the same as plotting the graph of the original one. Okay, so let's find a few coordinates on the right hand side. We can find the values of x for these 5 random values of y. When y is -2, x will be equal to 3 to the power -2. That will equal 1 over 3 squared or 1 over 9. When y is -1, x will be 3 to the power -1 or 1 over 3. Why don't you try finding the 3 values here? Three to the power 0 is 1, 3 to the power 1 is 3, and 3 squared will equal 9. So now we have 5 coordinates that can be plotted. Notice that no matter what the values of y are, x will always be positive. Yes, x gets smaller when y gets more negative, but x will still always be positive. So we draw the graph like this with only positive values of x. The first point can be plotted somewhere here. X is very close to 0 and y is -2. The second one can be plotted here, 1 over 3 and -1. This will be 1, 0, 3, 1 and 9, 2. Now we can plot the graph of this logarithmic function. This is how it'll look. Now let's compare exponential and logarithmic graphs. To understand it better, we can plot them side by side. This is the graph of the exponential function y is equal to 3 to the power x. And this is the graph of the logarithmic function y is equal to log x to the base 3. What can you infer by looking at these two plots? Do you think they are mirror images of each other? Yes, they are symmetrical about this line. It's the x equals y line. And that's why they are inverse functions. They have an inverse relationship. Exponential and logarithmic functions with the same base are inverse of each other. Can we use logarithms to find the number of digits in a to the power b? Say the number is n. Let's represent the possible values of n using a scale. Now we make equal units with multiples of 10 so that we cover a range from 1 to 10,000. So if the number a to the power b is 9, it'll lie between 1 and 10. If it's 400, it'll lie between 100 and 1000. Now what if we find the log to the base 10 of these numbers? The log of 1 is 0. The log of 10 to the base 10 will be 1. What will be the log of 100 to the base 10? It'll be the log of 10 squared to the base 10. That will equal 2 times log of 10 to the base 10, which equals 2. And similarly, we have 3 and 4 here. Now the important question is, why did we do this? Let's see. Any number between 1 and 10 will have how many digits? Numbers like 3, 5.5, 9.8, they all have 1 digit to the left of the decimal point. And if we look at the log scale, we can say that if the number has 1 digit, then its log will be between 0 and 1. The logarithm will be of the form 0 point something. Okay, now look at the second part. Any number between 10 and 100 will have 2 digits, correct? Numbers like 22, 49.1 have 2 digits. And their logarithm lies between 1 and 2. It'll be of the form 1 point something. We will have 3 digits and 4 digits in these two parts respectively. And their logarithms will be between 2 and 3 and between 3 and 4 respectively. Now this gives us a very important result. 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. When 1 is added to the number that we see in logs, we get the number of digits in the number. We can derive a very important property with this. If log of n to the base 10 is of the form x point something, then the number n will have x plus 1 digits to the left of the decimal point. This is how logarithms help us find the number of digits in a to the power b. Let's try out an example. There you go. We have to find the number of digits in this number. And we have been provided with these two logarithmic values. Needless to say, you aren't allowed to use the calculator. So let's try finding the log of the numbers. What will this be equal to? We can use the logarithmic addition identity to simplify this a bit. Log of a times b is equal to log of a plus log of b. Applying the identity, the right hand side can be written like this. Can we simplify this further? Yes, we can use the multiplication by a constant identity. Log of a to the power n is equal to n times log a. Applying it to the first term, we get 12 times log 2 to the base 10. And applying it to the second one, we get 10 times log 7 to the base 10. And we have been provided with these two values. Substituting them here, we get this expression. Now these calculations are pretty easy. The first term can be written as 10 times 0.301 plus 2 times 0.301. 3.01 plus 0.602 will equal 3.612. And this will be 8.451. This sum equals 12.063. This is the log value of this number n. But is that what we are asked for? Not really. We are asked for the number of digits in the number n. And the rule we just looked at said that if the logarithm to the base 10 value is of the form x point something, then the number of digits in the number will be x plus 1. As the number x is 12 here, the number n will have 13 digits before the decimal point.